The Trials of the Living Steel. They called it the Living Steel, a relic of a vanished empire older than any charted civilization. It lay sealed in the heart of a temple carved from obsidian and starlight, nestled into the jagged crust of a desolate moon. The temple had no name. It did not need one. Every species that had reached for the stars knew of the myth. The armor had never chosen a bearer. Not once. It had rejected kings, cast out telepaths, turned on conquerors and prophets alike. The bravest warriors of the Kerathai, the most disciplined minds of the Ilari ascendancy, even the hive-born unity of the Krasic swarm, none had been accepted. Most left crippled. A few never left at all. And yet still they came. This cycle, it was Syrinx of House Vethlor, heir to the throne of Zentari, who approached the temple gates. Clad in ceremonial armor of woven void steel, his twin hearts beat with arrogance and certainty. His entourage, dressed in silken robes and bio-enhanced muscle, stayed at the perimeter, unwilling to follow him into what the old text called the Chamber of Judgment. Syrinx marched alone. The temple greeted him in silence. Its corridors, untouched by time, whispered with ancient energy. Symbols shifted along the walls like slow fire, sensing his presence, probing his DNA, brushing against his psyche like unseen fingers. He reached the chamber. There it was, the armor resting in the center of a circular platform, suspended mid-air like it had been waiting. Its plates shimmered with an internal light, as if forged from liquid starcore. It pulsed once. Alive. Syrinx stepped forward, spreading his arms. "I am worthy," he announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. "I am bred for perfection, trained for war, born of the stars. I will wear you." The armor didn't move. Not at first. Then, slowly, it began to disassemble. Plates detached, hovering like puzzle pieces around him. He smiled. But that smile did not last. Without warning, the armor slammed into him hard. Not like a chosen host being accepted. Like a body being dissected. His scream ripped through the chamber as the plates attempted to force their way into his flesh, bypassing nerve endings, rewriting cellular structures, pushing into his mind. He fought it, tried to wrest control with his psychic discipline. It fought harder. Blood leaked from his eyes. His skin blistered. Muscles tore. The pain wasn't just physical, it was existential. It wasn't rejection. It was repulsion. Then the armor stopped. It dropped him like a broken tool and returned to its place in the air, pristine and untouched. Syrinx lay crumpled on the floor, whimpering. The chamber grew dim. And then, for the first time in 12,000 years, the temple spoke. A deep voice, old as gravity itself, echoed through the air. Still unworthy. Still unready. The custodians, ancient automatons made of bone metal and crystal, watched from the shadows. One tilted its head, processing the spoken verdict. Another recorded the moment, storing it among the tens of thousands of failed trials. Syrinx's guards eventually dragged his broken form from the chamber. His eyes were vacant, his pride shattered. Outside, the stars wheeled silently. The moon resumed its stillness. But inside the temple, the armor stirred once more. It shifted slightly, faintly, as if waking. Far above, in orbit, an emergency distress beacon flared to life. A tiny human freighter, half destroyed and leaking plasma, limped into the moon's atmosphere. Aboard it, alone and unconscious, was a human Mara Devlin falling fast, heading straight for the surface. The armor pulsed again. For the first time in countless ages, it reacted to something not inside the chamber but above. A presence. Unrefined. Unknown. Unexpected. The accidental claimant. The crash wasn't elegant. The freighter hit the moon's surface with a grinding shriek of metal, skipped across the jagged terrain like a stone skimming water, then plowed into a canyon wall with a bone-jarring crunch. Silence followed, thick, smoldering, and absolute. Inside the ruined cockpit, Mara Devlin groaned. "Still alive," she muttered, spitting blood onto the cracked console. Damn it! Her fingers were numb, her arm dislocated, ribs definitely broken. The life support was offline. The emergency beacon was dead again. But she crashed worse. Once into a gas giant storm system. This This was survivable. Probably. She kicked the release on the cockpit hatch. It didn't budge. Of course. A few kicks and a crowbar later, she was standing under the pale light of the moon's dying sun, wrapped in a patched EVA suit, hauling her emergency kit and an old plasma pistol with more attitude than accuracy. Her eyes caught the strange silhouette rising in the distance, a dark, jagged temple pressed against the horizon like a scar in the land. Shelter, or at least not actively on fire. Good enough. By the time she reached the temple entrance, sweat soaked her undersuit. Her legs burned. She bled through the suit to the elbow where she'd torn it sliding down a rock face. But she was breathing, moving, cursing. As long as she was cursing, she figured she was still winning. The structure loomed like it had grown from the rock itself, its architecture in human-angled spires and moving glyphs along the walls that shifted when she blinked. She waved a hand at a door panel. Knock, knock. Anyone home? To her surprise, the temple opened. No alarms. No defense drones. Just a slow, deliberate hiss of ancient air escaping into the cold. Who? Creepy doors opening themselves. Definitely not a horror setup at all. She stepped inside. The interior was oddly pristine, untouched by time. The floor lit with each step. Strange machines buzzed quietly in the walls, like something was watching. Mara felt it too. A hum under her feet. A static on her skin. Something was waking up. She followed the corridor deeper, her pistol shaking slightly in her grip, not from fear. She told herself, just nerves. Then she entered the chamber and froze. In the center hovered the armor, an impossible thing of shining plates and alien geometry, floating in the air like it was holding its breath. Light flickered across its surface. It rotated slowly, inspecting her. Mara blinked. Well, you're a hell of a coat rack. The room didn't laugh. Instead, something changed. The armor tilted slightly. Its hum intensified. The air around her thickened like pressure before a storm. Oh no, don't you start any glowing crap, buddy. The first plate moved. It floated toward her, smooth and silent. Mara backed up fast. Nope, nope, I'm not here for. Another plate moved. Then another. They hovered around her like wolves circling prey. She raised her pistol. I swear to God, if one of you tries to crawl up my... Too late. The first plate latched onto her chest, warm and seamless. She screamed, stumbled backward, and hit the floor as the rest descended. Arms, legs, back, spine. Each piece slid into place like it had always known her shape. It wasn't painful. It was alien, overwhelming. Images flashed through her head, stars she'd never seen, wars she'd never fought, languages she didn't speak. Her vision blacked out. When Mara woke, she was still lying on the chamber floor. But she wasn't cold anymore. The armor covered her completely now. Sleek, form-fitting, not bulky like she expected. It responded to her breath. Her thoughts. Her pain was gone. What the hell? She rose slowly, the armor helping her stand. A mirror panel slid from the floor. She stared at her reflection. The armor gleamed with quiet power, etched with unfamiliar symbols that shimmered as she moved. It didn't feel like wearing something. It felt like being rebuilt. A voice echoed in her skull. Not hers. Not human. You live. You persist. You are different. Mara shook her head. You're damn right I'm different. Now what the hell did I sign up for? Silence answered. But behind her, the walls of the temple began to shift, reacting. Preparing. Not for rejection this time, but integration. Far above, satellites hidden by centuries of silence activated. They transmitted a single message across the stars. The living steel has chosen. Species, human. The rebirth of the worthy. The armor moved with her now. Mara didn't control it, they moved together. As if the armor wasn't just a suit but an extension of her instincts. No training. No manual. It was like her body finally found something it had been missing all her life and snapped it into place. She paced the chamber, watching the metal shift and flow with each step. The armor responded to her pain, mending bruised muscle and cracked bone in seconds. Diagnostic scrolled across her vision in alien script that she could somehow understand. It pulsed with a heartbeat that wasn't quite his but wasn't quite foreign either. You and you, the voice said again. Not mechanical, not warm, something in between. Yeah, well, you don't get far in my line of work without taking a few hits, Mara muttered. She scanned the chamber. Or, crashing headfirst into haunted alien temples. The armor said nothing. Instead, the floor beneath it trembled. A platform rose, and holographic projections surrounded her. Memories, records of those who came before. Zentari warlords, glittering in ceremonial armor. Krasic swarm brains in biococoons. Ilari priest kings glowing with psionic fire. Each one reached for the armor. Each one was rejected. She watched one candidate scream as the armor turned on him, ripping into his mind, showing him visions that shattered his sanity. Another convulsed and burned from the inside out. Some were blasted away by unseen force before they could take a single step. Mara blinked, jaw tightening. So, I'm guessing this thing has high standards. They sought to possess, the voice said. You simply sought to survive. Mara tilted her head. That's your grand selection process. I didn't want the armor, so I get to keep it. You did not seek power. You did not demand purpose. You did not presume dominion. And yet, you endured what none did. You walked through pain and fear and did not stop. The voice paused, then spoke again, quieter. You are human. Mara folded her arms. You say that like it's a diagnosis. The holograms vanished. The temple shifted again. A door opened in the wall with a slow hiss, revealing a corridor glowing with blue light. The armor nudged her forward with a faint tingle along her spine. Reluctantly, Mara followed. She passed strange murals etched in flowing lines of metal, alien depictions of war, death, and survival. One panel showed a figure standing alone before a firestorm. Not fighting it, not commanding it, withstanding it. The living steel was not made to save, the voice said. It was made to resonate. Resonate with what? A will that refuses to break. She walked on in silence, the weight of the words settling in. Eventually, she entered a smaller chamber, round, ringed with ancient glyphs, the walls lined with crystalline interfaces. The armor lit them up as she stepped closer. Suddenly, pain stabbed through her skull. Memories, not hers, slammed into her mind. Marches across alien deserts. Battles in zero gravity. Holding a dying comrade's hand as the sun imploded behind them. Endless survival, no matter the cost. She staggered, gasping, dropping to one knee. The armor supported her but didn't stop the flood. It was showing her what it remembered. The pain it had shared. The warriors it had failed to bond with. The hope it had carried for millennia. Hope for something like her. By the time the memoravision faded, Mara was shaking, sweat slicking her brow beneath the helmet. You really took your sweet time finding someone, she muttered, breathless. The stars are vast, the voice replied. But stubbornness, that is rare. She laughed, a single bark of disbelief. You know, where I'm from, stubborn isn't usually a compliment. It is the highest honor. Outside, deep beneath the crust of the moon, dormant machines began to stay. Sensors lit up. The temple's ancient network beamed a new signal across the void. All across the sector, alien civilizations received the same message. Bond achieved. Humans selected. The living steel awakens. Back in the chamber, Mara stood taller. Something had shifted, not just in her body, not just in the armor, but inside her. She had no crown, no training in ancient arts, no legacy behind her name. But somehow, she was the one it chose. Because she never quit. Because she got up. Because she didn't need to be perfect. Just persistent. And now, she was wearing the most powerful artifact the galaxy had ever known. Guess I better find the exit, she said. And maybe a toothbrush. I've had a day. The war for the worthy. The signal didn't just echo, it roared. By the time Mara stepped out of the temple and into the pale light of the moon's surface, the galaxy was already burning. Above, alien warships had begun to converge, massive, spined constructs from the Ilari Ascendancy, sleek predator-shaped vessel from the Krasic's clutch, and cold, geometric dreadnoughts from the Centauri Empire. All of them homing in on a single beacon. The living steel has bonded. The bearer is human. Mara squinted up at the sky as dots of light glittered against the stars. Oh, hell! The armor stirred. They come not to honor, but to claim. Yeah, figured, Mara said grimly. They think I'm just a squishy meat sack in a shiny toy. They do not understand. They will. The first to arrive was the Centauri. Syrinx, bandaged, bitter, and barely recovered from his rejection, hovered in a gleaming drop pod above the temple ruins. His new armor was crude compared to the living steel, but his hatred radiated like a beacon. Mara Devlin, he snarled over an open channel. You do not deserve it. That armor is not yours to wield. It was meant for kings. Mara stepped forward onto the rock, armor glinting like midnight fire. Then why'd it pick me? Syrinx didn't answer. He opened fire. The plasma bolts screamed toward her like vengeful comets, but the armor moved before she did. Shields flickered into place with mathematical precision, absorbing the blasts and redirecting the energy back through a counterstrike. Mara's feet lifted off the ground. She flew. It wasn't graceful. Not yet, but it was instinctual. The armor read her intent and delivered. In seconds, she was above the battlefield, weaving between blasts, retaliating with hard-light spears and kinetic strikes that cracked Syrinx's defenses like brittle glass. He screamed as she punched through his pod and sent him tumbling to the rocks. She landed beside him, helmet retracting just enough for her to glare into his dazed eyes. You lost before you even got here, she said, because you thought it was about dominance. It's about survival. She turned and walked away. The armor sealed behind her like closing judgment. But there was no time to rest. The Krasiks landed next. Hundreds of Hive soldiers crawled from their war cruiser like a tide of black insects, clicking and screeching as they surrounded the temple. They didn't speak. They invaded. Shall I protect? The armor asked. Mara flexed her fingers. No, let's show them how humans fight. The armor obeyed. She launched into the swarm, faster than any eye could track. Each movement was a weapon, elbow, knee, fingertip. The armor adapted, reshaping to deflect claws, diffusing bioplasmic explosives, absorbing stingers and spines. She didn't command it. She moved, and it moved with her. One Krasix tried to impale her. She twisted and shattered its limb with a counterstrike that sent shockwaves through the canyon. This is what they feared, the voice whispered in her skull. Not the armor. You. By the time the sun dipped toward the horizon, the swarm lay broken. Mara stood at the heart of the carnage, chest heaving. I need a nap, she muttered. But rest wouldn't come. The last visitor wasn't a fleet. It was a single ship, small, cloaked, silent. Ilarian design. Psychic. It hovered over the battlefield, untouched. From it emerged a robed figure, slender, silver-skinned, with eyes like deep space. I am VL, the alien said calmly. I do not come to fight. I come to see. Mara frowned. See what? If the armor truly chose you, or if it simply grew tired of waiting. Mara's armor pulsed. She didn't lift a weapon, didn't threaten. She simply stepped forward. I didn't come here for this, she said. I didn't want power, or thrones, or prophecy. I wanted to live. And that's why it picked me. Because I don't need to control it. I just kept going. VL stared at her for a long moment. Then, to Mara's surprise, bowed. You are not what we expected, he said. But perhaps you are what we needed. Then he vanished, leaving her alone on the ruined moon. The stars overhead flickered with distant warships, but none dared land again. The message had been received. The living steel had chosen, and the bearer had proven worthy. Mara sat on a broken piece of stone, staring into the sky. The armor receded slightly, forming a sleek carapace that let her breathe the cool air. She wasn't a queen, not a soldier, just a human, but in the galaxy's darkest places, that meant more than anyone ever realized. What now? She asked aloud. The armor pulsed, warm against her chest. Now, we survive. The end. Let me know if you'd like a title card, epilogue, or if you're planning to expand this into a series. I've got ideas.